Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year from the Stuart family to you. I'd love to introduce my special guest for this week's video, my lovely wife, Christina. Some of you do not know her because when we're in person, she's in first service almost all the time. And then some of you don't know her because we've been in COVID for
10 very long months.
10 very long months. And longer for some of us than others because like my wife, in her case, she is a first responder. She works at the hospital, and that was challenging times, especially right at the beginning or the first couple of months. There was code blues, right? How often were these code blues happening?
Every morning, maybe 3 or 4.
Every morning,
the first couple hours.
3 or 4. Is that because people die more in the morning?
I don't know.
We don't know. But anyways, because code blues mean people are dying. So you're constantly being confronted with death. She was there at the hospital working. And so that's a traumatic impact on that. Of course, they didn't have all the PPE right at first, so there's that concern. Coming home and sharing that with your family, just all kinds of things like this. So lots of extra stress this year than other times. The other thing is so many people, some of you feel very isolated, but something good came out of this, and that was kind of that I got the epiphany that we really need to be into small groups. And Pastor Gaspar had been saying that. Pastor Candace had been saying that. But the thing that had the biggest impact on me was Christina. Because just prior to us going into COVID, you started to form a small group, right? And when did you have your very first small group meeting?
I believe it was the very first Sabbath we were closed.
The very first Sabbath we were closed, and you guys met through Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, through Zoom. And you've been meeting through Zoom every week since. You really never miss a week. Even the Sabbath, because you meet on Sabbaths for
Sabbath
how
morning.
long?
Supposedly an hour.
Supposedly an hour, sometimes not an hour. And I know this because then I get the kids being loud, and I need to make sure that they stay quiet during mom's small group. But even like the day after Christmas, you guys met. Or
sometimes we'll meet just for prayer and prayer requests and maybe a little message if we're going to be missing a few people.
So, but they meet, and it's a group of, how many people are in your group?
We have 11.
11 people in
your
group?
We had 12. One who lives in Pennsylvania decided that it might be easier just to be with a group that already knew each other.
But. Okay. So I had invited 12, 11 came along, and one went on their way. We won't call her Judas because we know her and we love her. She's not a Judas, but so this is Christine's group, and they've been meeting ever since. And so as I'm going through COVID and I'm starting to think about small groups, the thing that's really catching my attention is how it's impacting Christina. Without this small group, I think you probably it would have been 10 times harder, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like I never went through the COVID isolation. There was 10 of us who I picked, so I knew them. And some of them were really close friends. Some people I just felt like they maybe didn't have a connection to church. But I felt from the start when we weren't meeting in person, I always had someone that I was checking in at least once a week. But because some of them were really good friends and also going through a lot of the stress of unknown with COVID, we frequently would text and check on each other. So someone in the group probably got a text from another group member at least once a week, if not every couple days. So
it wasn't you just met and then you ditched each other for the rest of the week, but people were caring for each other and valuing each other throughout the time, which is very good. So because Christina really had the largest impact on me wanting to do small groups, because I was seeing her, and also we had some other friends. We have a few other friends that had started a small group right around the time of COVID. And as I watched these groups, and I noticed the people that were in small groups seemed to be handling the COVID thing a lot better than the rest of us in many ways. And so it really impacted me. And of course, then I started digging in and I read Ellen White's statement, or I've read it before, but I refamiliarized myself with Ellen White's statement that she was shown by the Spirit many times a method which cannot fail. And so as we're thinking about our church and the mission for 2021, we need to become a church that is embracing the method that cannot fail, and not just a few of us, but all of us, in regards to small groups. I asked Kristen to be on here though because I wanted her to show you some of the stuff that they've been studying, because it's different for everybody, but just to give some ideas and kind of talk about what they've been doing. And so, Christine, if you'll just show these things and maybe say a couple words about them.
Well, we've been in COVID a very long time. So we are on our 6th book, but our 6th book is counts for like 4 books because it's super big and super long. We started with just studying the
Armor of God, right?
Armor of God, which is Priscilla Shire. And then we kind of did a bunch of her. We did the 1st and 2nd Kings. We did Jonah. We also tried Lisa
Turkhurst, I think is her name. I don't know. Now these ones are all written by 2 different women. These are written by 2 different women. Are these only studies for women, or can men do these too?
We actually did our family small group for kids. We did off of Lisa's
Armor of God.
Armor of God.
Priscilla Shire's Armor of God.
Oh, yeah.
Priscilla Shire's Armor of God. So they could be for anybody. And I have to say that I was surprised because when we were going to do the study and we were doing the study, there was things that were written in the study that I thought to myself, like, ooh, I wish I had thought of that. I never thought about that. We can learn from everybody.
He thought I was really smart when I had comments.
Yeah, well, she would tell me things. I'd say, "Oh man, that's brilliant," and she was reading these brilliant ladies. And then you're doing this one.
So we're now doing Experiencing God by Blackaby. It is much more of like a school checkbox,
a textbook.
Questions. Yeah, textbook. It's much more of like a repetitive, but it's...
Does that mean you don't like it, or the ladies don't like it?
No, I do like it. I feel like it was hard to adjust from one, like more of a fluid, more of an emotional way of writing, to a very like...
intellectual.
Cut and dry, yeah. But I feel like all of the ladies in our group first had a little hard time. I was scared to do this book because it was massive. And it's a lot to it instead of just 5 days. It's a lot. So I was always hesitant to do it. But one of our previous books actually mentioned this Blackaby study and said, if you haven't done it, do it. So I'm like, okay, enough. I'm going to do it.
And you had done it actually in college,
done it.
Yes.
And it was very good, but it was very different. In our study, we've only done studies that break them down into days. So each day I have one of the ladies lead it. So I don't have to lead all or any sometimes. And so each one is in charge of a certain day. So I really wanted to make sure we still had that kind of model to go by, because I think it's easier for all of us ladies to not be in charge of everything. It also gives different perceptions,
voices, perspectives
that we get of all of them. But the ladies, I think, have all enjoyed all of them. And
tell them what they said about this one. They said
it was hard to get to, but they were so glad that we had done the studies prior.
They're glad this one wasn't the first one, but they're glad that
everything that we studied kind of reflected and helped us kind of see this study in a more personal way, not just academically.
And Christina said something to me before, off camera, not on this video, where she said God really led, because if we had started with this study, it wouldn't have been good for the group, but that we got to it now is good because everything's kind of built up to it, right? So it's this big thing. And that's really like God led in how you chose the people. God led the timing. I mean, you were putting this small group together, and your first gathering was literally on the Sabbath that we were first out of church. And then, of course, now this study. And that's the thing. That's the key with small groups is God leads, God directs, God implants these things into our lives. God did the same thing with my group. I also want to have Christina on here because we're very different. And I want people to understand that groups are for everybody. So Christina's more emotive, and she's also more of a people person. In other words, she feels more isolated. She misses being around people, these types of things. Whereas me, I always tell her, hey babe, I got you and I got the boys. and I'm cool.
You think you're good.
I think I'm good. So I don't always understand that I need small groups as much. But Christina, you said that all of us need small groups, and especially you think a certain group needs small groups. And who is that?
The people who don't think they need small groups.
So that would be you.
That would be you.
Oh, that would be me. All right. Okay.
I feel like if you don't think you need one, you just don't realize what you're missing out on. I feel like everybody, even if you don't feel isolated, once you get in a small group and share and have other people share, you realize like this is how God meant it. He meant us to connect, to follow up, to care. It's not all about reading the Sabbath school lesson and just regurgitating what you read. It's about really connecting with people and where they're at and what they can teach you and what you can teach them.
And you can't do that in just a worship. You can't do that just sitting in a pew. You have to have it in small groups, right? I mean, like.
And if it's too big of a group, I wouldn't talk. Like if you put me in a large group, I don't need to talk about it. If you put me in a small group and there's not people talking, I'm happy to share, but not if other people are already talking.
And I talk more the larger the crowd is than the smaller the crowd is. So we go the opposite way. But everybody needs small groups. And Christina kept pushing me too. She said, Chad, you need to start your small group. You need to start your small group. She didn't even start a small group because she heard my sermon was just so blown away. No. Actually, in fact, she said, Chad, small groups are good. We need to do them. And so and God has just led. And right now, we're really, though, a church with small groups. We have like 22 small groups, I think, going, which we praise God for. But we want to become a church of small groups. And what that means is that small groups are really driving the ministry and the mission. Because we can't really be fully on mission until everybody is connected with other people and working together with other people. So, Christina, final words to them, those folk, give them a last charge to go out and join a small group or to start a small group, and maybe just tell them how to do that. Tell them how to start a small group. Just gather a few people and go.
Are you telling them?
You tell them. You're the better small group person, so you tell them. I just read books. You know how to actually do it.
I basically would just try not to be intimidated. Honestly, you don't have to do anything but gather a couple friends and be the one that's willing to open with prayer or ask someone to pray or ask someone to close with prayer. I honestly frequently don't lead one day in our group. I basically am just the one to make sure that someone is leading, that make sure that someone's talking and everyone gets to talk. But I would just say pick 2 good friends. Have them pick 2 friends. Have them pick 2 friends. Do 8 to 10 in a group and start it. Don't wait. Don't think, oh, it's not a good time. Chad got up at 6 in the morning and met with his group. And I do feel like if you don't meet earlier.
She mentioned the 6 in the morning because that's not a normal get up and maybe chipper and meet with a group time.
But I would just get started. Once you get started, you'll realize that it's important. And don't quit. Like once you are done with a book, don't be like, oh, that was nice, because it's not just meant for a short term. You might change a group after a couple months, but don't stop, because even if you personally don't think that it's for you, God put you there for someone else.
Yeah. So you might not, so you're saying you might not have loved it, but you don't know what someone else might have experienced and the blessing that they received from that.
And you don't know what the next book will be like.
Yeah, and the next book or the next
study, next group.
Or the next group. That's the other thing too, is sometimes you're moved to a different group. You know, people could break off from your group or from my group and they could start another group, and we'd be totally cool with that because we want more groups. All of the ladies
in my group could lead their own group and expand into 10 group, but we love our group so much. So, we hate to miss out.
But let me just say this though, because I think that makes it sound kind of exclusive. But the point is, the actual truth is you guys have done things for others in need. So you haven't just been exclusive to caring for each other, but when you've known of others having need, you reached out and do things for them, right? So
I think it's easier for women, but yes, I feel like our group is filled with lots of women who truly have that burden on their heart. That one of our ladies got gifts for one of the other ladies' coworkers. It just kind of worked together.
So things like that. Now, folks, I want you to understand something. This is how important small groups are. We have been at Spencerville for how many years, babe?
6.
6 years. Not long years. They've actually gone by very fast, and we love it here. Christina told me I'm not allowed to take a call anywhere else. So, but we've been here for 6 years. And how many times have you been on camera?
This is the first and last
First
one.
and last time, only to promote small groups. You hate being on camera, and you don't like being up in front of people. You told me when you married me, don't ask me to tell a children's story, play piano, or anything. Just let me sit but you lead the small groups and those things. But this is how important small groups is to Christina, that she would actually come on here and say something, and you might not hear her on camera ever again, but we want you to go out and join a small group. Everyone, right?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Start, but don't wait for someone. You go do your own small group. You have one friend, they have one friend, do it with 3.
Do it with 3. There you go. And you can let us know, though, about it at spencervillechurch.org/small groups. If you are someone that really has no connections at all, which is very rare, but if that is the case, then please go on there and sign up, and we'll connect you to a group. But spencervillechurch.org/small groups, and sign up. We think that everybody should be. And in 2021, we want to move from a church with small groups to a church of small groups. Why? Because Jesus showed to Ellen White that it is a method that cannot fail. All right. I love you. And we love you. Christina loves you. And she just gave me the signal for us to say, okay,
We're done.
We're done. Let's go. All right. Bye. Mwah.